She sold the family dream and turned it into her personal kingdom. Hey there, take a deep breath, maybe a sip of something warm. You're in the right place. Today's Just Normal podcast dives into one woman's reality with a toxic mother-in-law who turned a family dream into a personal kingdom. This story's got emotional manipulation, family betrayal, and a twist you won't see coming. I used to believe we had something special, a family dream, one built on summer evenings by the lake, shared meals, and maybe even peace. I remember when my husband, let's call him DH, first told me about the lakeside property. His parents, Mile and FIL, had found a beautiful spot by the water. The plan? Build a shared family retreat, a peaceful getaway for everyone. They pitched it like a vision. It'll be a place where the boys and their families can spend time, build memories, something for the future. It sounded lovely. And with that promise, DH and his brother BIL each invested, not just money, but trust. They paid to build a guest house next to the main cabin, where Mile and FIL would stay. But it was framed as equal, autonomous. Everyone gets their own space, they said. For a while, it looked like a dream unfolding. But you know those moments when your gut knows something is off, even when no one says it out loud? That was the first red flag. Have you ever felt tension in your own home, like someone else is pulling the strings, even when it's supposed to be your space? A couple of years passed. The construction was finished. The property stood beautiful and ready, with that calm ripple of lake water against the shore. Then, everything changed. Mile and FIL sold their house in the city and moved to the cabin, full-time. Just like that. No warning, no family meeting, no discussion. The guest house we helped build, now just a side room next to Mile's full-time residence. So much for autonomy. We weren't just visitors anymore, we were intruders, guests in their home. I tried to hold on to grace. Maybe it'll still work, I told myself. We'll take weekends here and there. It'll still be worth it. But what followed wasn't just inconvenient, it was emotionally draining. Mile began to treat the guest house like an extension of herself. Freezer stuffed with her random bulk buys. Closets overflowing with her clothes, blankets, holiday decorations. Even the fridge had rules, and when I left half a banana in there once, she scolded us like we were children. Yes, a half-eaten banana, that was her breaking point. Ever felt like you're walking on eggshells in a place you helped pay for? Meanwhile, BIL and his wife, they were at the lake every weekend. They didn't mind Mile and FIL being there. In fact, they acted like one big happy clan. They even took it upon themselves to redesign the space, turning the interior into something out of a discount home decor catalogue. Think live, laugh, love signs and factory-made faux rustic furniture. It would have been funny if it weren't so hurtful, because I'd tried to add our own touches too. A Mexican sculpture from the 70s, a hand-woven art piece we commissioned together, our first as a married couple. They laughed at it. Mill literally said, "What even is that thing? What even is it?" It's ours. It's our story. And yet, it felt like we were being erased, pushed out of something we helped create. Do you know what it's like to feel invisible in a place that should feel like home? Still, the tension didn't peak until DH and I decided to set our own boundary. They wanted to buy a boat, something big, flashy, expensive, and of course split 4 ways. Mill, Phil, DH, Bill. But we'd had enough. DH and I had made a pact when we got married. No more investing in their lifestyle. We had dreams of our own, a home of our own, maybe even a little summer place one day, just for us. So DH said, "No," and the disapproval was immediate. Mill's reaction? A sharp look, cold silence. Then the words, "Why would you buy another summer place?" "That's so strange. You already have one. With us. With her." That's when I realized something. She didn't just move in physically. She moved in emotionally, financially, and mentally. She saw herself at the center of everything. And the rest of us? Just satellites orbiting around her little kingdom. Have you ever looked around and thought, how did I end up here? We thought we were investing in a family retreat. But what we really bought into was a toxic, narcissistic Mill's personal fiefdom. And it was only the beginning. I wish I could say we adjusted, that we found balance, but the truth is, this is where I started losing sleep, and myself. The lakeside cabin, the one we once imagined filled with joy and laughter, had become a stage, a theater for emotional manipulation. And my mother-in-law, she was directing every scene. It started with guilt-tripping, subtle at first, then sharper, like a dagger hidden in a compliment. When my husband mentioned again that we were saving for our own place someday, she tilted her head and gave him that fake, too sweet smile. Wow, it's like you're running away from us. After everything we've built together? Everything we built? She meant everything we paid for that now sat under her name. The ownership, legal and emotional, was never really shared. Then came the passive aggression. She'd make backhanded comments about how my brother-in-law and his wife were so involved, while we were never around anymore. It's just funny, she'd say during dinner, how some people pull back when things get real. She meant me. I became the outsider, the one disrupting her perfect picture. She'd send long texts filled with emotional landmines. It breaks my heart to see the family drifting apart. I know you're busy, but you used to care more. Every sentence dripping with manipulation. Arrived at the cabin unannounced, still believing we had the right to be there. And she was furious. Not screaming, that would be too honest. Just cold silence, dishes clinking too loud, cabinets slammed shut. And then, I just wish people would respect boundaries. Boundaries. From the woman who turned a shared family property into her shrine. At first, I tried to brush it off. I told myself, this is about her, not me. But the truth is, it got inside me. I started second-guessing everything. Should you go this weekend? Should I say anything? Was I being too sensitive? Too cold? Even my husband and I started fighting. He loves his mom. Of course he does. But love doesn't excuse everything. And he was caught in the middle. One night, after a particularly tense phone call, he said something that cracked me open. I feel like I'm failing everyone. That's what she did, not just to me, but to him. She didn't just pull at guilt, she used it like a tool. A wrench, a rope, a cage. And that weight started to crush him. Crush us. Because every time we tried to draw a line, she twisted the narrative, made it seem like we were tearing the family apart. There was one night I'll never forget. We had just gotten home after another draining weekend at the cabin. I was exhausted. She had commented again on the state of the guest house. We'd left 2 mugs in the sink, just 2. And then came the classic line, "This isn't a hotel, you know." No, it wasn't, because a hotel treats you like a guest. She treated us like burdens. That night, I sat on the bathroom floor, my husband asleep in the next room, and I cried. Not just from frustration, but from the realization that I no longer felt safe in what was supposed to be ours. The place we helped build with our money and trust had become a symbol of everything we couldn't control. Not just her, but the way she infected every corner of our peace. She sold the family dream, moved in, took control, and now she used our love, our silence, our hesitation, to keep us tethered to something we no longer recognized. We were no longer welcome. We were expected. And there's a world of pain between the two. Next comes the breaking point, when everything finally snapped and my husband had to decide, his peace or her power. It all came to a head over something so small, it almost felt ridiculous. MIL had asked, no, expected us to join the family for a weekend barbecue at the cabin. Another one of those mandatory fun events where everything looks cheerful from the outside, but inside, we're tiptoeing around landmines. We hadn't planned to go. Dash and I were behind on our own projects, and honestly, I was emotionally drained. But when he told her we were staying home, she didn't take it well. The phone rang that night. I could hear her voice from across the room. "You're letting her isolate you." And then, the line that shattered everything. "She's changing you, and not for the better." I froze. He didn't defend me, not right away. That silence, that pause, It hurt more than anything she could have said. Later that night, I asked him why he didn't speak up. He sighed, ran his hands through his hair and said, "Because I'm tired. I feel like no matter what I say, someone gets hurt." I looked at him and realized he was stuck between keeping the peace and protecting his peace, and both were slipping away. So I did something I hadn't done before. I asked for one thing. I need you to choose, not between me and your mom, but between silence and honesty. I can't keep living like this. The next weekend, we drove to the cabin, not for a barbecue, not for a getaway, for a conversation. MIL opened the door, all smiles. "Well, look who finally decided to show up." I stepped inside, heart pounding. DH stood next to me, shoulders tense. And then for the first time, he didn't dance around her. He told her everything. That the cabin no longer felt like home. That the guest house was cluttered with her things, not shared with us. That we weren't going to keep funding their lifestyle. That her guilt-tripping and judgment weren't love, they were control. And when he mentioned we might buy our own summer place, she lost it. "You're abandoning your family. I gave everything for this dream and now you just walk away." Then she turned to me, eyes sharp. "You did this. You poisoned him. You'll never be good enough for him." And that was it. The moment I thought I'd break down, but instead I stood taller. I looked her in the eye and said, "Then thank you for showing me exactly who I'm dealing with." She started to cry, not from pain, but from losing control. And in that moment, DH wrapped his arm around me, not her, and said, "We're done letting guilt make our decisions." We left that night without staying, drove in silence for an hour before either of us spoke. Finally, he said, "I'm sorry it took me so long to see it." And I said, "I'm just glad you finally did." That was the night everything changed. It didn't magically fix everything, of course. There were angry messages, follow-up calls, and drama in the weeks after. But it was the moment DH stopped being a son, afraid of upsetting his mom, and started being a partner who chose peace with me over war with her. Sometimes, the biggest betrayal isn't what's said, it's what's accepted, and we had accepted too much for too long. This wasn't just about a cabin. It was about space, respect, ownership, not just of property, but of our own lives. Would you have snapped or stayed silent? Because for me, staying silent was no longer an option. And walking away finally felt like coming home. After that confrontation, everything felt quieter, not peaceful, not at first. Just quiet in the way an emotional storm leaves stillness behind. It feels unfamiliar, like you're relearning how to breathe in your own lungs. We didn't return to the cabin after that night, not once. And when the inevitable messages came, "We should talk. This isn't how families behave. You're tearing us apart." We didn't answer right away. We didn't ignore them out of anger. We were just done. Done explaining. Done justifying. Done letting someone else define what love should look like. It wasn't easy. DH struggled with the guilt, especially at first. Decades of conditioning don't disappear in a single moment. But slowly he started to see that choosing boundaries wasn't a betrayal. It was an act of love, for himself, for me, and for the future we wanted. We had a long talk about the property, the money he'd invested, the loss we'd have to take if we pulled out, but we knew peace was worth more than any dollar amount. He called his father, asked about selling his share. That conversation was cold, transactional. FIL said he could only get back what he put in, not the current value. That was the price of walking away, not just financially, but emotionally. We paid it, and it hurt. For a while, it stung. But then, a strange thing happened. We started dreaming again. Without the weight of that place, our weekends opened up. We explored other lakes, just the two of us. We visited local art shows, the kind we used to love. We even found a small cabin listed for sale. Nothing fancy, just a quiet spot tucked in the trees. And for the first time in years, DH looked at me and said, "This one feels like ours." We didn't buy it right away. We wanted to take our time, to be sure, because now we knew what it meant to truly own something, not just with your wallet, but with your heart. And owning peace, that starts inside. I started sleeping better, not because life was perfect, but because the constant emotional static had been turned down. I could sit on my couch, light a candle, read a book, and not feel like I was failing someone by simply existing. It sounds small, but it's not. And DH, he laughed more. He made jokes again. He started calling his mom less out of obligation and more out of clarity. Conversations became shorter, firmer, and sometimes didn't happen at all. And that was okay. We went to therapy together, not because we were broken, but because we were ready to grow, to unlearn patterns that kept us stuck, to rebuild not just our boundaries, but our voice. It's not about cutting people off. It's about cutting off the power they hold when they don't respect who you are. There's a myth that family means unconditional access, that love means sacrifice, no matter the cost. But real love respects limits. Real love says, I want you happy, even if it means giving you space. My MIL never said those words. Maybe she never will, but that's not my responsibility. And lighting candles without worrying what someone else will think of your table settings. Sometimes, letting go is the bravest thing you can do. And sometimes, the win isn't dramatic. It's not a courtroom scene or a grand apology. It's the silence after a storm. It's hearing your partner say, I'm proud of us. It's a weekend with no expectations, a morning coffee that's yours alone. It's finally calling something home and knowing no one can take that from you. That's where we are now, still learning, still healing, but free. And that's everything. Looking back now, it's strange how something as beautiful as a lakeside cabin could become the setting for so much pain. You go into family with hope, with trust. You believe the people who raise the ones you love will welcome you with open arms, and when they don't, when love is replaced with control and generosity turns into a leash, it breaks something inside you. But it doesn't have to stay broken. I used to think setting boundaries would make me the villain, that choosing myself, my peace, would make me selfish. But now, I know, it makes me whole. This story wasn't just about a toxic mother-in-law. It was about reclaiming space, reclaiming voice, learning that love without respect isn't really love at all. My husband and I are stronger now, not because we never struggle, but because we've learned how to stand side by side, not just against his mother, but for each other. We still get the occasional text, the little passive-aggressive comments that come through mutual relatives, the guilt that tries to claw its way back in. But we don't answer it the same way anymore. We don't owe silence to anyone who uses our love as leverage. And you, whoever you are, wherever you are listening, maybe you've felt this too. Maybe you've sat at a dinner table and swallowed your truth. Maybe you've smiled through tears just to keep the peace. Maybe you've been told you're too sensitive, too distant, too strange for wanting your own space. You're not alone. You deserve peace. You deserve respect. And you deserve to build a life that doesn't require walking on eggshells to keep someone else happy. Let that be your reminder. Not everything passed down in families is worth keeping. Some things are meant to be released. Healing doesn't always come in big moments. Sometimes it's the quiet decision to leave a group chat, the courage to say, I won't be coming this weekend, the strength to admit that you've had enough. You don't have to scream to reclaim your life. You just have to choose it every single day. And if any part of this story felt like yours, if you've ever had a mother-in-law who crossed that line, who made you feel small in your own life, just know you're not crazy, you're not wrong, and you are definitely not alone. Ever dealt with a mother-in-law like this? Type yes in the comments if you've been there too. Let's talk truth and healing together.
More than that.
Lán, Hannigan. Mitrisam burns / maintenance of channel and relay bar count. Advitet how most happened of the nation he meritus when relas, in strength by move the base belt. Mit befern to you notifor to in faving to moved that is much along things is harding that I make them move from the place. More than that,